So you saw me this morning and refused to greet me? What exactly do you think you are? Have you suddenly become too important to greet your boss? You completely ignored me this morning. Good morning, Vanessa.
Splash! Water exploded across the office. Important documents flew off the desk. A laptop screen flickered. Employees jumped from their seats. Someone screamed. Another worker dropped a file. The entire 23rd floor of Johnson Global Holdings in Lagos froze in shock. Standing in the middle of the luxurious corporate office in Lagos was Vanessa Johnson. Her chest rose and fell with anger. Water dripped from the desk in front of her. Across from her stood Mirabel Okafor, completely stunned. The hard-working employee had been typing reports only seconds earlier. Now, her computer, files, and meeting documents were soaked. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Everyone simply stared. Then Vanessa pointed an angry finger at Mirabel. "So you saw me this morning and refused to greet me?" Her voice thundered through the office. The silence became heavier. "What exactly do you think you are?" Vanessa continued. "Have you suddenly become too important to greet your boss?" Mirabel blinked repeatedly. She looked around, confused. "Ma'am, I greeted you in the parking lot." Vanessa's face darkened. "And now you're calling me a liar?" "No, ma'am." "Then keep quiet." Several employees lowered their heads. This was not the first time. Vanessa Johnson was feared throughout the company. People avoided her corridors. Workers prayed not to share meetings with her. Junior staff became nervous whenever she appeared. The woman had everything money could buy. She was beautiful, highly educated, successful, rich, powerful. Yet she treated people as if they were worthless. For several minutes, she continued shouting at Mirabel. The office remained silent. Nobody dared interfere. Nobody wanted to become her next target. Finally, Mirabel slowly stood up. Her soaked documents lay scattered around her desk. Her voice was calm, respectful, but firm. "Good morning, Vanessa." The office became completely silent. Every eye turned toward her. Nobody could believe what was happening. Mirabel continued. "Since greeting seems very important to you, let me greet you again." Vanessa narrowed her eyes. "But respect should go both ways." Silence. Absolute silence. Even the air conditioner seemed louder. The entire office stared at Mirabel. For years, people had endured Vanessa's insults. For years, people had remained silent. For years, nobody had challenged her. Yet, this quiet woman had done it calmly, without shouting, without disrespect, without fear. Vanessa's face turned red. "You are lucky I don't fire you today." Mirabel simply nodded. "If that makes you happy, ma'am." The response shocked everyone even more. Vanessa clenched her fists. For a moment, she looked ready to explode. Then she spun around. Her expensive heels struck the polished floor angrily. Bang! The glass door slammed behind her. Only then did people begin breathing again. "Mirabel," one employee whispered, "are you okay?" Mirabel looked at her ruined work. Then she forced a small smile. "I'll be fine." But deep down, she felt hot. Very hot. By lunchtime, the story had spread across the entire company. Everyone was talking about it. Not because Vanessa humiliated someone. That was normal. People talked because somebody had finally stood up to her. The woman who terrorized the office. The woman everyone feared. The woman who believed money made her better than everyone else. Unfortunately, Vanessa's bad character did not stop at work. That evening, she arrived at the Johnson family mansion. A security guard rushed to open the gate. The elderly man smiled politely. "Good evening, madam." Vanessa frowned. "Why did it take you so long?" The old man immediately apologized. But Vanessa continued scolding him. The man's smile disappeared. Inside the mansion, things became worse. A young housemaid accidentally dropped a tray while serving drinks. The sound echoed through the living room. Vanessa immediately stood up. "You are useless." The frightened girl began shaking. Tears filled her eyes. Vanessa continued insulting her until her mother, Grace Johnson, intervened. "Enough, Vanessa." The room became quiet. Grace looked sadly at her daughter. "When will you learn to treat people with kindness?" Vanessa laughed. "Kindness doesn't build empires." Her mother sighed. "Wealth without character destroys lives." Vanessa rolled her eyes. As usual, she ignored the advice. Later that night, the family gathered for dinner. Her father, Richard Johnson, was a respected businessman known across Nigeria. Her younger brother, Daniel, barely spoke whenever Vanessa was present. Her younger sister, Stephanie, lived in constant fear of her sharp tongue. During dinner, Stephanie excitedly shared news about a scholarship opportunity. Before she could finish speaking, Vanessa interrupted. "Nobody wants to hear your boring stories." The room fell silent. Stephanie's smile vanished. A few moments later, she quietly left the table. Nobody missed the tears running down her face. Daniel pushed back his chair. "I'm done eating." He walked away. Their father finally spoke. "Vanessa." She looked up. "Yes?" "Do you enjoy hurting people?" The question caught her off guard. She shrugged. "They are too sensitive." Richard stared at her. "No." His voice was calm. "You are becoming someone people tolerate instead of love." For the first time that day, Vanessa said nothing, but only for a moment. Then she stood up. "Good night." As she walked upstairs, she believed everyone else was the problem. The workers, the security guards, the housemaids, her siblings, even her parents. She believed fear was respect. She believed power was love. She believed wealth made her superior. What she did not know was that her world was about to change. Very soon, she would meet a man who seemed perfect, a man who admired her success, a man who appeared to understand her, a man she would trust with her heart. But behind his charming smile was a dangerous secret. And before long, Vanessa Johnson would discover that money can buy many things, but it cannot protect a person from betrayal. 3 days after the shocking incident in the office, people were still talking about what had happened. Some workers secretly admired Mirabelle's courage. Others worried that Vanessa would eventually find a way to punish her. But Vanessa seemed unusually quiet, not because she felt sorry. She was simply angry that someone had dared to challenge her. On Friday evening, Vanessa attended an exclusive business networking event at a luxury hotel in Lagos. The hall was filled with politicians, company executives, investors, and wealthy business owners. Vanessa loved places like this. She enjoyed being admired. She enjoyed being noticed. She enjoyed reminding people how successful she was. Dressed in an expensive designer gown, she walked confidently through the crowd. Many people greeted her, some out of respect, others out of fear. Then she noticed a handsome man standing near the refreshment table. He looked calm and confident. His name was Kelvin Brooks. He was intelligent, well-spoken, and carried himself like a successful businessman. As Vanessa approached, Kelvin smiled warmly. "Miss Johnson, I've heard a lot about you." Vanessa smiled. Most people praised her because of her father's influence, but something about Kelvin felt different. For the next hour, they talked. Kelvin seemed fascinated by her achievements. He listened carefully, he complimented her intelligence, he admired her success. Everything Vanessa wanted to hear. For the first time in a long while, she felt understood. What Vanessa did not know was that Kelvin had studied her long before that night. He knew about her family's wealth. He knew about her father's business empire. He knew about her position in the company. And he knew exactly how to gain her trust. Meanwhile, across town, Mirabel returned home to her small apartment. Life was not easy for her. Her salary helped support her widowed mother and 2 younger brothers. Yet, despite her struggles, she remained grateful. That evening, she received an unexpected phone call. It was from the chairman of a partner company. He had heard about her professionalism and dedication. "We need someone reliable for a special project," he said. "Your name was recommended." Mirabel was shocked. She had never imagined such an opportunity. As tears filled her eyes, she thanked God. While one woman's character was quietly opening doors, another woman's pride was preparing to lead her into danger. Over the next few weeks, Kelvin and Vanessa became inseparable. They exchanged messages daily, they attended events together, they spent weekends together. Whenever Vanessa introduced him to friends, he appeared respectful and charming. Even her parents noticed the relationship. One evening, Kelvin visited the Johnson mansion for dinner. Grace Johnson observed him carefully. Something about him made her uncomfortable. She could not explain why. After dinner, she pulled Vanessa aside. "My daughter, please be careful." Vanessa frowned. "Careful of what?" "I don't fully trust that young man." Vanessa laughed immediately. "Because he isn't from a wealthy family?" Grace shook her head. "That's not what I'm saying." But Vanessa refused to listen. For years she had ignored advice. Why would she start now? Unknown to her, Kelvin smiled politely in public, but behind closed doors, he was already making secret phone calls. Calls that could one day destroy everything Vanessa valued. And somewhere in the darkness, people who envied the Johnson family's wealth were waiting patiently, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. 2 months passed. The relationship between Vanessa and Kelvin grew stronger every day. At least, that was what Vanessa believed. She was deeply in love. For the first time in her life, she felt she had found someone who truly understood her. She bought expensive gifts for Kelvin, luxury watches, designer suits, the latest phones. Whenever Kelvin admired something, Vanessa found a way to buy it. Money was never a problem for her. Unfortunately, love was making her blind. One Saturday afternoon, the Johnson family gathered in the living room. Richard Johnson sat quietly reading a business report while Grace watched television. Vanessa entered excitedly. "Dad, Kelvin and I are planning a trip to Dubai next month." Her father looked up. "That's good." Vanessa smiled. "We may even discuss marriage soon." Instead of looking excited, Richard became serious. "Vanessa, how much do you really know about this man?" The smile disappeared from her face. "What does that mean?" "It means exactly what I asked." Grace exchanged worried glances with her husband. Vanessa folded her arms. "You both keep looking for faults in him." "We are simply being careful," Grace replied softly, but Vanessa refused to listen. The conversation ended in frustration. Later that evening, Daniel entered Vanessa's room. Her younger brother rarely spoke to her, but this time he looked concerned. "I need to tell you something." Vanessa looked up from her phone. "What is it?" "I saw Kelvin at a restaurant yesterday." Vanessa smiled. "So?" "He wasn't alone." The smile disappeared. "What are you talking about?" Daniel hesitated. "He was with a woman." Vanessa laughed loudly. "That's your big news." They looked very close. Vanessa stood up immediately. "You've never liked him." "I'm serious. And I'm telling you to mind your business." Daniel sighed. "I was only trying to help." "Then stop helping." Hurt by her response, Daniel quietly left the room. Downstairs, Grace shook her head sadly. "What happened?" Daniel sat beside her. "She won't listen." The following week, another strange thing happened. A confidential company proposal disappeared from Vanessa's office. The document contained sensitive business information. Management immediately launched an investigation. Everyone became worried. Vanessa was furious. She blamed junior staff, she blamed assistants, she blamed everyone except herself. During a management meeting, she publicly embarrassed 2 employees. One of them left the room in tears. Mirabel watched everything silently. After the meeting, she approached Vanessa carefully. "Ma'am, maybe we should first investigate before accusing people." Vanessa turned sharply. "Did I ask for your opinion?" "No, ma'am." "Then keep it to yourself." Mirabel quietly walked away. Several workers felt sorry for her, yet she refused to respond with anger. That same evening, Daniel visited Vanessa. He acted concerned about the missing document. He comforted her. He listened carefully as she explained every detail of the investigation. Unknown to Vanessa, Kelvin was gathering information he had no right to know. Later that night, Kelvin sat inside his car outside her mansion. His phone rang. A smile appeared on his face. "Did she tell you everything?" a voice asked. "Yes," Kelvin replied, "and she's beginning to trust me completely." The caller laughed. Perfect. Kelvin ended the call and drove away. Meanwhile, inside the mansion, Vanessa stared at her phone. She smiled as she read Kelvin's messages. For the first time in years, she felt safe. For the first time, she believed someone truly loved her. But she had no idea that danger was already sitting beside her. The warnings were there. Her parents saw them. Daniel saw them. Even some of her friends noticed them. Yet, Vanessa ignored every sign. She trusted Kelvin completely. And very soon, that trust would cost her more than she could ever imagine. Far away, Kelvin parked his car in front of a quiet apartment building. A young woman rushed outside. The moment she saw him, she smiled and threw her arms around him. Kelvin hugged her tightly. Then he kissed her. Neither of them knew that someone was watching from across the street, and that person had just taken a photograph that would soon change everything. The Johnson family mansion was unusually quiet. For the first time in many years, Vanessa sat alone in her room without confidence. The photograph Daniel had shown her days earlier refused to leave her mind. Again and again, she stared at Kelvin's smiling face beside the unknown woman. Whenever she looked at it, her heart became heavy. Yet, she still wanted to believe there was an explanation. She wanted to believe the man she loved would never betray her. The following evening, Kelvin arrived at the mansion carrying flowers. His usual charming smile was on his face, but Vanessa was no longer smiling. "We need to talk," she said. Immediately, Kelvin sensed danger. What happened? Vanessa handed him her phone. The moment he saw the photograph, his face changed slightly, but he quickly recovered. "Who gave you this? Answer the question." Kelvin sighed dramatically. "Vanessa, that's my cousin." Vanessa stared at him. "My cousin just returned from London. You expect me to believe that? It's the truth." For almost an hour, Kelvin defended himself. He spoke confidently. He sounded convincing. And because Vanessa desperately wanted to trust him, she accepted the explanation. Once again, she ignored the warning signs. Unfortunately, bigger problems were already approaching. A week later, shocking news hit Johnson Global Holdings. A major business competitor suddenly launched a project that was almost identical to a confidential proposal developed by Vanessa's department. Management was stunned. The leaked information could only have come from someone with inside access. The board immediately launched another investigation. Richard Johnson was furious. Millions of naira were at risk. Several executives became suspects. And for the first time, Vanessa herself was questioned. She felt insulted. "Are you accusing me?" she asked angrily. "We are investigating everyone," one board member replied. But Vanessa refused to cooperate calmly. She stormed out of the meeting. Her reputation inside the company was beginning to suffer. Meanwhile, something completely different was happening in Mirabel's life. The special project she had been assigned months earlier was a huge success. Clients loved her work. Management praised her professionalism. Her salary was increased. She received a promotion. For the first time, she could comfortably support her mother and younger brothers. One afternoon, the chairman personally thanked her.
"You have a gift," he said. "People trust you because of your character." Mirabel smiled humbly. She remembered the difficult days. She remembered the insults. She remembered the humiliation. But she chose gratitude instead of bitterness. Back at the Johnson mansion, another crisis was unfolding. Stephanie, Vanessa's younger sister, had secretly applied for a scholarship abroad. When the acceptance letter arrived, the family celebrated. Everyone except Vanessa. "So now everyone is pretending she is a genius," said Vanessa. The room became quiet. Stephanie looked hurt. "Can't you just be happy for me?" Vanessa laughed. "You got lucky." Tears filled Stephanie's eyes. She ran upstairs crying. Grace immediately stood up. "Enough!" The entire room froze. For the first time, Vanessa's mother looked truly angry. "Your sister achieved something wonderful, and your first reaction is jealousy." Vanessa looked shocked. "Jealousy?" "Yes. You always need to be the center of attention." Vanessa grabbed her handbag. "I'm not listening to this." She stormed out of the house. As she drove away, she convinced herself that everyone was against her. Her parents, her siblings, her colleagues. She felt misunderstood. What she did not know was that the biggest betrayal was still ahead. That same night, Kelvin sat inside a private lounge with two men. One of them worked for a rival company. The other was connected to powerful business interests that had long envied the Johnson family. A laptop sat open on the table. Confidential information filled the screen. Information belonging to Johnson Global Holdings. Kelvin smiled. "The next phase is almost complete." One of the men nodded. "And Vanessa suspects nothing?" Kelvin laughed. "She trusts me completely." The three men exchanged satisfied smiles. Outside, rain began to fall heavily. Inside the mansion, Vanessa lay awake staring at the ceiling. She was worried about the investigation. She was worried about her family's growing disappointment. Yet, she still believed Kelvin was the one person on her side. She had no idea that the man she trusted most was secretly helping to destroy everything around her. And very soon, a shocking discovery would expose the truth. A truth so painful that it will bring Vanessa Johnson to her knees.
The storm finally arrived. And when it came, it destroyed everything Vanessa Johnson thought she had. It began on a Tuesday morning. Vanessa was preparing for an important executive meeting when she received a call from her father. His voice sounded unusually serious. "Come to my office immediately." Her heart skipped. Something was wrong, very wrong. 20 minutes later, Vanessa entered her father's office. The atmosphere was tense. Several board members were present. The company's legal advisor was there. Even the head of security was seated quietly. Vanessa looked around nervously. What happened? Nobody answered immediately. Then, Richard Johnson pushed a file across the table. "Look at it." Vanessa opened the file. Her eyes widened. Inside were bank records, phone records, email records, photographs, evidence. A mountain of evidence. The blood drained from her face. At the center of everything was one name, Kelvin Brooks. "No," she whispered. "It can't be." Richard looked heartbroken. "It is true." The room became silent. Investigators had discovered that confidential company information had been leaked repeatedly over several months. Millions of naira had been lost. Business contracts had disappeared. Competitors had gained access to secret company plans, and Kelvin had been directly involved. Vanessa felt dizzy. Her hands began shaking. No. Then another photograph was placed before her. This one was even worse. Kelvin stood beside the same woman from the restaurant. But this time, there was no explanation, no excuses, no lies. The woman was wearing an engagement ring. His engagement ring. Tears filled Vanessa's eyes. Who is she? The legal advisor answered softly. Her name is Angela. The room became painfully quiet. They have been together for almost 4 years. Vanessa froze. 4 years. She struggled to breathe. But he said he loved me. Nobody spoke, because everyone already knew the truth. Kelvin had never loved her. She had been a target, nothing more. The relationship, the promises, the affection, the compliments, everything had been a lie. For the first time in her life, Vanessa felt completely powerless. The woman who had made others cry was now fighting her own tears. Hours later, she confronted Kelvin. She drove straight to his apartment. Her hands trembled as she pounded on the door. Bang! 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 The door opened. Kelvin stood there. For a moment, he looked surprised. Then he saw the evidence in her hands. His expression changed. The lies were over. Tell me it's not true, Vanessa cried. Kelvin remained silent. Tell me. Still nothing. Finally, he sighed. It's true. The words hit Vanessa like a moving truck. She staggered backward. Why? Kelvin looked away. It wasn't personal. Vanessa laughed through her tears. Not personal. You used me. You used my family. You destroyed my trust. Kelvin's face remained cold. The opportunity was there. Vanessa felt her heart breaking. Everything suddenly made sense. The secret calls, the missing money, the leaked information, the lies, the warnings from her parents, the concerns from Daniel, the advice she had ignored. Everyone tried to help her, but she had refused to listen. Vanessa left in tears. For hours, she drove aimlessly through Lagos. She cried harder than she had ever cried before. The pain was unbearable. But worse things followed. News of the scandal quickly spread. Board members questioned her judgment. Some executives blamed her for giving Kelvin access to sensitive information. The media began reporting parts of the story. People whispered behind her back. The once powerful Vanessa Johnson became the subject of gossip. At work, employees looked at her differently. At social events, people avoided her. Friends stopped calling. Many who once praised her disappeared. Her wealth could not stop the humiliation. Her position could not stop the embarrassment. For the first time in her life, she understood loneliness. Days later, she locked herself inside her room. She ignored calls, ignored messages, ignored visitors. The confident woman everyone feared had disappeared. In her place was someone broken. One evening, Grace entered the room quietly. Vanessa sat on the floor crying. Her eyes were swollen. Her face looked exhausted. Without speaking, Grace sat beside her. For several minutes, neither woman said anything. Then Vanessa finally whispered, "Mom." Grace held her hand. "Yes? Is this how I made people feel?" A tear rolled down her mother's cheek. Vanessa lowered her head. For the first time, she remembered every security guard she insulted, every employee she humiliated, every housemaid she shouted at, every family member she hurt. The memories came rushing back. And with them came guilt. Heavy guilt, the kind that keeps a person awake at night. Vanessa began crying again, not because of Kelvin, not because of the scandal, but because she was finally seeing herself clearly, and what she saw filled her with regret. But unknown to Vanessa, her lowest moment was also the beginning of something new. Because very soon, when almost everyone abandoned her, one unexpected person would step forward to help. The same person she had humiliated before the entire office, Mirabel. Vanessa had not gone to work for almost 3 weeks. Most days, she remained inside her room. The confident woman who once walked through offices with pride now avoided mirrors. She barely ate. She barely slept. The betrayal had broken her, but the guilt was even worse. Every night, she remembered the people she had hurt, the security guard she insulted, the housemaid she reduced to tears, her younger sister's broken heart, her brother's disappointment, the employees she publicly humiliated. For the first time in her life, Vanessa understood what pain felt like. One Monday morning, Richard Johnson entered her room. "You can't stay here forever." Vanessa stared silently at the floor. "The board wants you back at work." She looked up slowly. "People hate me there." Richard sighed. "Some do." The answer hurt. But running away won't solve anything. A few days later, Vanessa finally returned to the office. The moment she stepped inside the building, she felt uncomfortable. The same corridors that once made her feel powerful now felt cold. Some workers greeted her politely. Others simply nodded. Many avoided eye contact. Nobody looked afraid anymore. And strangely, that hurt more than fear. During lunch break, Vanessa sat alone in the company cafeteria. The room was full, yet no one sat beside her. She lowered her head. For years, she had believed power was everything. Now, she realized she had spent years pushing people away. Suddenly, a tray appeared in front of her. Vanessa looked up. Her eyes widened. Mirabel, the last person she expected. "May I sit here?" Mirabel asked gently. Vanessa was speechless. After everything she had done to her, Mirabel was still being kind. Slowly, Vanessa nodded. For several moments, neither woman spoke. Then, Mirabel smiled softly. "How are you feeling?" Vanessa laughed bitterly. "Terrible." Mirabel nodded. "I understand." "No, you don't." Mirabel looked at her calmly. "Maybe not completely." Then she added quietly, "But I know what it feels like to be hurt." Those words pierced Vanessa's heart. She remembered the water, the insults, the humiliation. Yet, Mirabel showed no bitterness, no hatred, no desire for revenge. Vanessa felt ashamed, very ashamed. Tears gathered in her eyes. "I'm sorry." Mirabel looked surprised. "For what?" "For everything." The words came out broken. "For how I treated you, for embarrassing you, for acting like I was better than everyone." The cafeteria became silent around them. Mirabel smiled gently. "I forgave you a long time ago." Vanessa could hardly believe it. "Why?" Mirabel thought for a moment. "Because carrying anger is heavy." A tear rolled down Vanessa's face. For years, she had been surrounded by wealthy people, powerful people, influential people. Yet, none of them had shown her the kind of strength Mirabel was showing now. The strength to forgive. That evening, Vanessa returned home feeling different. For the first time in months, she felt a small sense of peace. The next day, she knocked on Stephanie's bedroom door. Her younger sister opened it cautiously. "Can we talk?" Stephanie looked surprised. Vanessa entered slowly. Tears filled her eyes. "I'm sorry." Stephanie froze. Vanessa continued. "I spent years hurting you. I mocked your achievements. I made you cry. I was a terrible sister." Stephanie began crying too. The two sisters hugged tightly. For several minutes, neither could speak. Downstairs, Grace watched from the hallway. Tears filled her eyes as she thanked God silently.
A few days later, Vanessa apologized to Daniel. Then she apologized to the elderly security guard, then to the housemaids, then to several employees she had mistreated. Some accepted her apology immediately. Others needed time. And Vanessa understood. Trust was not something she could demand. It was something she had to earn. Meanwhile, new evidence continued exposing Kelvin and his associates. Several arrests were made. The entire scheme finally collapsed. The people who had tried to exploit the Johnson family's business empire were brought to justice. For the first time, the nightmare was ending. But Vanessa knew something important. The biggest battle had never been against Kelvin. The biggest battle had been against her own pride. And slowly, she was winning. Yet, one final family gathering awaited her. A gathering that would determine whether the wounds of the past could truly heal. And during that gathering, Vanessa would make a decision that would change her life forever.
3 months later, the Johnson family gathered in the mansion for an important family meeting. The atmosphere felt very different from the tension and sadness that had filled the house in the past. For the first time in many years, everyone seemed relaxed. Everyone except Vanessa. She sat quietly in her chair, nervously twisting her fingers. Her father, Richard Johnson, looked around the room. Grace sat beside him. Daniel was there. Stephanie was there. Even a few close relatives had been invited. Vanessa slowly stood up. The room became silent. She took a deep breath. Then she began to speak. There was a time when I believed money made me important. Nobody interrupted. She continued. I thought power meant people should fear me. Tears filled her eyes. I thought I was better than everyone. The room remained quiet. But I was wrong. Her voice broke. Very wrong. She looked toward her younger sister. Stephanie, I am sorry for every tear I caused. Stephanie wiped her eyes. Vanessa turned toward Daniel. I am sorry for pushing you away when all you wanted was to help me. Daniel nodded emotionally. Then Vanessa faced her parents, the people she had disappointed the most. Tears rolled freely down her face. Mom? Dad, I am sorry for ignoring your advice. I am sorry for embarrassing this family. Grace could no longer hold back her tears. She stood up and hugged her daughter tightly. For several moments, mother and daughter cried together. Soon, Richard joined them, then Daniel, then Stephanie. The entire family embraced. Years of pain seemed to melt away. For the first time in a long time, the Johnson family felt whole again. Weeks later, Vanessa made another important decision. She established a foundation that helped young people from struggling backgrounds gain education and career opportunities. She personally mentored junior employees. She treated security guards with respect. She learned the names of cleaners and drivers. She listened more. She talked less. People began noticing the change. At first, many doubted her. Some believed it was temporary. Others thought it was an act. But month after month, Vanessa remained humble. Her actions spoke louder than words. Back at the company, something unexpected happened. The board promoted Mirabel to a senior leadership position. The announcement was met with applause. Nobody deserved it more. Mirabel's kindness, honesty, and professionalism had earned the respect of everyone. After the meeting, Vanessa approached her. The two women stood facing each other. Vanessa smiled. A long time ago, I poured water on your desk. Mirabel laughed softly. I remember. Vanessa shook her head. I thought strength meant making people fear me. Mirabel smiled. And now, Vanessa looked around the office, at the employees, at the people she once looked down on. Then she smiled. Now, I know strength means treating people well, even when you have power. Mirabel nodded. That's a lesson many people never learn. The two women shook hands, not as enemies, not as rivals, but as friends. 1 year later, life looked completely different. Stephanie had won her scholarship and was thriving abroad. Daniel had expanded his own successful business. The Johnson family had become closer than ever. Mirabel continued growing professionally and inspiring others. And Vanessa? Vanessa was no longer feared. She was respected. The same people who once avoided her now enjoyed working with her. The same employees who trembled when she entered a room now greeted her warmly. One evening, Vanessa stood on the balcony of the family mansion watching the Lagos sunset. Her mother joined her. Neither spoke for a while. Then Grace smiled. "You've changed." Vanessa smiled back. "I had to lose everything to understand what truly matters." Grace squeezed her hand. "And what matters?" Vanessa looked toward the workers in the compound, laughing together. Then she looked at her family inside the house. Finally, she answered, "People, love, character, kindness." Grace smiled proudly. The woman who once believed money could solve everything had finally learned the truth. Because wealth can build a mansion, but it cannot build trust. Money can buy attention, but it cannot buy genuine love. Power can make people obey, but it cannot make people respect you. In the end, Vanessa discovered that the greatest success in life is not how much money a person has, it is how they treat others. And from that day forward, she never forgot the lesson that changed her life forever.